Our Graveguard, any good in patch 5.3? See, a lot of people dumped on Graveguard anyway, so I didn't feel any pressure to do a video on the old variants. But now we have a Halberds variant, sneaking in at the very end of Spooktober. I don't want to be accused of being a grave robber, so before you make me drink some absinthe, I'm going to do a video on all three variants. Let's put a leather heel to that shovel and dig in. Recruit for 850 okay, technically it's dark magic, and 213 upkeep. The base Graveguard arrive at 120 entities on Ultra, with 9,840 health between them. Already we see this is a full-service infantry unit, and has the health meant to last, which is good, because everything else will be looked at very critically. Armor is 90 for all variants, but in this case there's a big, fat, silver quality shield blocking 55% of small arms fire, which makes this a much stronger missile tar pit in this faction than skeleton swordsmen and spearmen will be. You can tell I'm spoiled on Tomb King's shields. Leadership is 50, this is unchanged for the new patch. For Undead, that's not the worst out there at all. Speed, 27 and charge speed 35 are slightly inferior to most dwarfs and chaos warriors, so yeah, it's pretty slow. Melee attack begins at 26, which I'm sure looks miserable, with an attack interval of 4.4, which is nothing especially punishing. No splash damage. Melee defense starts at 36, which is certainly a fair bit better, and means that the armored and shielded stuff isn't just for show. Weapon strength arrives to us at 40, split between base 28 and armor piercing 12, with a bonus versus infantry of 8, which jacks up both values in proportion. So effectively melee attack 34, and weapon strength 48 against basic Empire Swordsmen. Well, you know what basic Empire Swordsmen have for weapon strength? Class, show of hands. It's 28. Split 21 base, 7 AP. So I want to mention early that Graveguard having quote-unquote garbage stats is a bit misleading, because they hit like trucks, more so against enemies their own size, or smaller like, oh, Noblars, but still. Charge bonus is 8, which is bad but also not shocking, and mass is 100. So how about the Great Weapons variant? Cost creeps up to 950 dark magic and 238 upkeep per turn. No shields, of course, but the armor and health are still there. Speed is still turtle slow, and not ninja turtle, I mean slow turtle slow. Melee attack is the same starting point of 26. Attack interval is tweaked downward slightly at 4.3. Melee defense of 26 starts 10 worse than the other version, which is par for the course, but people don't like great weapons for reasons like these, yes? Weapon strength starts at 42, split between base 13 and 29 armor piercing, which is pretty solid, and of course, armor piercing heavy. Bonus versus infantry is 13, so 5 better than the other version had. Where did I see a profile like this lately? Oh yeah, Zargard. Their great weapons were pretty monstrous against Chaos. Let's see. Weapon strength around the same, melee defense 10 better, melee attack 14 better. Yeah, that's why they carried that profile into fat victories against Black Orcs and Biggins. And that was with the same number of entities. Wait, Graveguard had 50% more entities than Zargard did. Aside from having poor eyesight, maybe they need prescription glasses, they can hit every bit as hard against infantry as Zargard could. Were they really that bad? Charge bonus for great weapons is 12 here, and mass is 100 again. Now, for the new hotness out of the cold, dank tombs, Graveguard with Halberds. Applause! Yes, we've been waiting for this. So what do we have here? Well, it definitely costs more, 975 dark magic, 244 upkeep. What are we getting for that cost? All the basic stats are the same. Attack interval 4.3. Melee attack starts at 20, which is pretty low, yes. Melee defense of 34 isn't anything to be ashamed of, but of course, no shields. Can't be forgetting that part. Weapon strength is given to us as only 36, split between base 10 damage and 26 armor piercing, which is still very convenient. But obviously this was designed around a bonus versus large of 19. 19 is a pretty hefty number that, well, it almost literally doubles the starting melee attack, and that's over 50% of its weapon strength being boosted. Weapon strength 55 with armor piercing against your favorite Bretonnian knight unit to hate on? Not bad at all. Charge bonus 4, and mass 100 again. While all variants cost fear and can hide in forest and have the standard undead penchant for when the going gets tough, the undead crumble away, this variant, as we would expect, has charge reflection and charge defense against... Wait, it's actually expert charge defense. They'll do double damage when charged by infantry too, if, and only if, they connect with that low base melee attack. At any rate, enemy infantry will see their fat charge bonuses rendered impotent. Let's look at the redline skills. Okay, I haven't played this faction much, so what do we have here? Oh, the Unliving Host. Remember when I said that +6 to melee attack and melee defense at 3 pips was pretty good for various factions? This is +8 for both at 3 pips. Wait, seriously? That's a lot. Legions of the Dead grant rank 7 Graveguard +5 melee attack. I guess we found their prescription glasses. Or maybe they use contacts. Weapon strength +12% because we want Graveguard to hit even harder. And spell resistance 15% because Bright Wizards exist. In the tech tree, Unearth Cursed White Blades as +10% weapon strength for all Graveguard. Dread Animator shaves 15% off upkeep, shaves 10% off recruitment and raise dead costs. It's nice to be specific, because those tend to be split with the Vampire Coast. And armor +10 for good measure. So how do you use Graveguard? I'll be blunt and honest, most people's advice to me for how to use them is to never ever recruit them and go full skeleton spam, or if Gorst, zombie, and mortis spam. And I see why, but setting aside that both my personal inclinations and my as a gamer observations tell me that similar units can do very well if you give them any support at all, Zargard for instance, it's best to summarize. Graveguard and Graveguard with great weapons are blunt instruments, so to speak. Heavy hitters specialized at tearing the life out of infantry. They lose a lot of their potential when they go up against mounted heroes, basic cavalry, and so on. All of a sudden, we have the Halberds version, with expert charge defense for that matter, able to lock down flanks much better than skeleton spearmen, though yes, those have shields, do keep that in mind, and providing you with your first choice, rather than least worst, for trying to fend off frost chickens, or Emperor Griffins trying to take a bite out of undeath. Now you have a viable path to building against Ogre Spam, which will matter more as the next major DLC hits, and it's harder for common greenskin factions to troll you to death. I'm not really kidding. Drowning in splash damage inflicting trolls is a good way for a mass infantry army to get sent back to the grave. In fact, a lot of people, to the extent they try to use Graveguard at all, use them with blob tactics. Now, to a certain extent, you don't need it with the Halberds. But if you do use it, then Halberds will counterattack with reliable, armor-piercing, very hard-hitting anti-large attacks. And there's still 120 entities with nearly 10k hit points on Ultra. Any leadership buffing at all, and they're going to be hard to beat down. Still, now that you have an entirely valid reason to unblob a Graveguard unit and get it nice and braced, that's a tactic. Why not give it a shot? We're dealing with vampire accounts, so magic is inevitably going to be a big part of the playstyle along with other combinations. But I think Graveguard need little babysitting as long as you're using them against the right stuff. Again, there's a strong anti-Graveguard contingent, seeing the money spent on them as a waste, but if you embrace them, even a basic Danse Macabre can have them connecting far more frequently with these quite high weapon strength attacks. And of course, even the simplest redline skill favoritism will make them hit a lot more often. But you do you. If nothing else, you can use them to pin and bleed a bigger force, be it infantry or cavalry as the case may be, and dump unholy terror on it from above. Whether that's a Purple Sun or a Vargeist Brigade is up to your situation and preference. How do you want your enemies to die that day? The more they bleed from the Graveguard, the quicker they'll shatter. Just remember, Graveguard are one of the worst units in the game at hot pursuit. So keep that in the back of your mind when filling out your army. You're not just killing stragglers, you're investing in future fresh recruits. Take it seriously, then celebrate in the tomb afterward. That's how the pros do it. Take care, and have fun laughing in the face of enemy cavalry. And since they're undead, it's going to be some really creepy clattering. But we're all about enjoyment on this channel. Happy Halloween!